What is the most bad but thing said in history? Adrian Carpenter Wired. He served in the Boer War, First World War, and Second World War, was shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, and ear, survived 2 plane crashes, tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp, and tore off his own fingers when a doctor refused to amputate them. Describing his experiences in the First World War, he wrote, "Frankly, I had enjoyed the war. Truly a man of adventure." That guy in the Salem witch trails, that when they were crushing him with a board and placing rocks on it, he wouldn't admit to witchcraft and kept saying more weight until he died. There is nothing proper about what you are doing, soldier, but do try to kill me properly. Marcus Tullius Cicero, facing his death. Spanish missionary inquisitor, if you repent for your sins now you can go to heaven. Native American chief, are there Spaniards in heaven? Spanish missionary, yes. Native American chief, then I'd rather die and go to heck with the rest of my people than be with more Spaniards for even a moment. Well, crap. Death had to take him sleeping, for if Roosevelt had been awake, there would have been a fight. Vice President Thomas R. Marshall on the death of Theodore Roosevelt. I also thought that Roosevelt was badass when he gave a speech after getting shot. Just about anything Chesty Puller said. They are in front of us, behind us, and we are flanked on both sides by an enemy that outnumbers us 29-1. They can't get away from us now. We're surrounded. That simplifies the problem. Probably not the most bad but a good line nonetheless. Khrushchev supposedly once said to Zhou Enlai, Premier of China under Mao, "You must acknowledge that I come from the working class, while you were born to a family of the bourgeoisie." Zhou replied, "Yes, but we have one thing in common. We have both betrayed our class. We have both betrayed our class." Freaking roasted. To Joseph Stalin, "Stop sending people to kill me. We've already captured 5 of them, one of them with a bomb and another with a rifle. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send a very fast working one to Moscow and I certainly won't have to send another." Josip Broz Tito. Source notes, Robert Service, Stalin, A Biography, Cambridge, Mass, Harvard University Press, 2005, p. 592. Why did Tito and Stalin hate each other? My dad told me a story about a man who was mortally wounded in a gunfight. When the doctor told him there wasn't much to be done to save his life, he got up off the bed and managed to walk out into the street. "Where are you going?" asked the doctor. "I'm going to go kill the bastard that killed me," he said. Earl of Uxbridge, the cavalry commander at the Battle of Waterloo. In the dying moments of the battle, that the commander sealed his reputation as one of Britain's most self-contained and unflappable soldiers. Riding next to Wellington as cannon shot hurtled across the battlefield, he turned to the Iron Duke and uttered the brilliant conversation starter, "By God, sir, I've lost my leg," to which Wellington replied, with equal restraint, "By God, sir, so you have." Upper lip stiffens. The reply of the Zaporozhian Cossacks to an ultimatum from the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed V. O Sultan, Turkish devil and damned devil's kith and kin, secretary to Lucifer himself. "What the devil kind of knight art thou, that canst not slay a hedgehog with your naked ass? The devil shoots, and your army eats. Thou shalt not, thou son of a W, make subjects of Christian sons. We have no fear of your army. By land and by sea we will battle with thee. Frick thy mother. I'm the big buck of this lick. If any of you want to try it, come on and wet your horns." Abraham Lincoln to a crowd that was angry after he won a wrestling match in one move. No bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor, dumb bastard die for his country. George S. Patchen. Dips finger and tastes thread. Needs more Patchen. May God have mercy upon my enemies, because I won't. Shortly before World War I, the German Kaiser was the guest of the Swiss government to observe military maneuvers. The Kaiser asked a Swiss militiaman, "You are 500,000 and you shoot well, but if we attack with 1 million men, what will you do?" The soldier replied, "Shoot twice and go home. Never mess with the Swiss." We must, indeed, all hang together, or most assuredly we shall all hang separately. Ben Franklin before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Not as bad but my favorite, on sleeping with older women. They don't tell, they don't swell, and they're grateful as heck. Philip II of Macedon sent an envoy to Sparta threatening, if I win this war, you will be slaves forever. Sparta responded with if. Granted, at the time Sparta wasn't really the same military force to be reckoned with that it once was, but still a bad butt thing to say. I chuckle a little bit at the NRA imbibing misguided types. They'll sport the Mollen Labi in Greek letters, which was Sparta's reply of come and take them when told to throw down their weapons. What people forget is, they came and took them. Big talk is great, better if backed up, I guess. General McAuliffe's reply to the German commander at the Battle of the Bulge Nuts. Oh yeah, and they held the line while being shelled and fricked 6 ways from Sunday. A prohibitionist confronted Churchill during a campaign stop in a church. Mr. Churchill, we have calculated that the quantity of whiskey you have drunk in your lifetime won't fill this church up party yay high, holding her hand about 6 feet off the ground. What do you say to that? Churchill looked at her hand, then slowly let his gaze drift to the ceiling. But so much to do, so little time. I have not yet begun to fight. John Paul Jones, upon being commanded to surrender his ship, the Bonhomme Richard, to the British frigate, Serapis. This was after an initial volley of cannon fire at each other, in which it became clear the Bonhomme Richard, a repurposed merchant vessel, was no match for the British 50-gun frigate. Jones ordered the Bonhomme Richard to close the gap between the ships, while suffering a pounding from the Serapis. He finally came alongside the Serapis as the Bonhomme Richard was burning and sinking. The British captain, once again, demanded that he surrender. He replied thusly, I may sink, but I'll be damned if I strike. The British attempted to board and seize the Bonhomme Richard, but were repelled, followed immediately by Jones ordering his men to board the Serapis, to which they succeeded, and after nearly an hour-long pitched battle, overtook the Serapis. Jones and his men scuttled the Bonhomme Richard, and sailed the Serapis under no flag to neutral Holland for repairs. He was more balls than brains, perhaps, but that's one hell of a crap talker who was able to leave a naval battle in a better ship than he arrived in. I prefer his work with Led Zeppelin. Don't fire unless fired upon, but if they mean to have a war, let it begin here. John Parker, captain at Battle of Lexington. I am tired and sick of war. Its glory is all moonshine. It is only those who have neither fired a shot nor heard the shrieks and groans of the wounded who cry aloud for blood, for vengeance, for desolation. War is heck. William Tecumseh Sherman. No, war is war and heck is heck, at least in heck you know everyone there deserves it, but in war almost everyone is innocent. Gentlemen, I do not know whether we shall change history tomorrow, but we shall certainly alter the geography. Don't remember who said it though. British Major General Charles Harrington the day before launching a massive attack against German forces, according to Nat Geo. It was a written order issued by Lieutenant F.P. Beaton. He had been ordered to hold his machine gun position at all costs. His order read, Special Order of No. 1 Section the 13th of March 1918. This position will be held and the section will remain here until relieved. The enemy cannot be allowed to interfere with this program. If the section cannot remain here alive, it will remain here dead, but in any case it will remain here. Should any man, through shell shock or any other cause, attempt to surrender, he will remain here dead. Should all guns be blown out, the section will use Mills bombs and other novelties. Finally, the position as stated, will be held. I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country. Nathan Hale. He was a spy in the Revolutionary War, and this was said before he was hanged in public after getting caught. How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter, if through us thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action? Sophie Scholl, age 21, of the White Rose Resistance movement in Nazi Germany. Her last words before being publicly executed by guillotine. The following quote was found written on a wall in a concentration camp jail cell. If there is a God, he will have to beg my forgiveness, unknown Jewish Holocaust victim. Suffering is always the biggest issue the religious apologist must address. As a non-religious person, their explanations have always fallen short of substituting the obvious conclusion. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. If an injury is to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Niccolo Machiavelli. When asked why Spartan women were the only ones who could rule men, Queen Gorgo of Sparta answered, "Because we're the only women who give birth to men. Something about a woman's name being Gorgo would make me want to not pee her off." And his hands would plait the priest's entrails, for want of a rope, to strangle kings. Denis Diderot. A common rewrite of this is man will never be free until the last king is strangled with the entrails of the last priest. Pretty freaking metal. Peccavi, Latin, I have sinned. Single word message to London sent by General Napier on capturing the province of Sindh, in what was then India and is now Pakistan. Be it so. This burning of widows is your custom. Prepare the funeral pile. But my nation has also a custom. When men burn women alive, we hang them and confiscate all their property. My carpenters shall therefore erect gibbets on which to hang all concerned when the widow is consumed. Let us all act according to national customs. When the Governor-General Frontenac was approached by an English envoy before the Battle of Quebec, 7 Years' War, to lay down his arms and surrender, Frontenac replied, "I have no reply to make to your general other than from the mouth of my cannons and muskets." The story between Harun and Nicephorus. Harun al-Rashid invaded the Byzantium Empire before he became caliph, and he extracted tribute from Empress Irene, who paid it under a peace treaty. When she was deposed, her usurper, Nicephorus Ilogothetes, rejected her treaty, and wrote to Harun al-Rashid, from Nicephorus, the king of Romans, to al-Rashid the king of the Arabs, as follows: "That woman put you and your father and your brother in the place of kings and put herself in the place of a commoner. I put you in a different place and am preparing to invade your lands and attack your cities, unless you repay me what that woman paid you. Farewell." Khalifa Harun was so incensed, he wrote the following letter: "In the name of God, the merciful and the compassionate, from the servant of God, Harun, commander of the faithful, to Nicephorus, the dog of the Romans, as follows: I have understood your letter, and I have your answer. You will see it with your own eyes, not hear it." Spartan history is full of them, as well as the Carthaginians immediately after the First Punic War, and leading up to the Second Punic War. Spartan, when Xerxes asked the Spartan king Leonidas I to lay down his arms and surrender, after surrounding his forces at the Battle of Thermopylae, Leonidas simply replied, "Moln lave, moln labe, come and take them." When Philip II of Macedon sent a message to Sparta that said, "You are advised to submit without further delay, for if I bring my army into your land, I will destroy your farms, slay your people, and raze your city," the Spartans simply replied with one word, "Aka." If neither Philip or his son Alexander the Great even attempted to attack Sparta, Punic, Carthaginian, the Romans sent an envoy to Iberia to find out why their former enemy Carthage, whom they had barely defeated in 23 years of conflict, was campaigning there. The leader of the Punic forces simply replied that he was gathering the booty to pay off the war indemnity. In truth, it was to build an experienced military, train his sons to command the Punic forces, expand Carthaginian influence, and ultimately bring down Rome. Nearly succeeded in the last one. When the Carthaginians attacked a Roman ally in Iberia, the Romans sent an envoy to Carthage. After some debate, the Roman envoy gathered folds of his robes and said, "I bring you both peace and war. Which do you choose?" The Carthaginians replied, "Give us either, it does not matter." The Roman envoy dropped the folds of his robes and retorted, "Then I give you war." To which the Punic council replied, "And we accept." The reason Philip of Alexander didn't attack Sparta is because they were so insignificant. Karl Marx, when he was dying, was asked if he had any last words. He answered, "Go on, get out. Last words are for fools who haven't said enough," and died shortly after. Guess the lad was done then. I am not going. Do with me what you like. I am not going. Come on, come on. take action. Let's go, Chief Sitting Bull. These words have always stuck with me. It's not that they're necessarily clever, but I think that's kinda the point. They're the words of a man who's had it and won't be pushed any farther. They're simple and raw. I have no reply to make to your general other than from the mouth of my cannons and muskets. Louis de Buade de Frontenac. Why don't you fix your little problem and light this candle? Astronaut Alan Shepard said this to the worried NASA technicians while he was strapped into a massive rocket filled with highly explosive fuel that was delayed due to high fuel pressure. The technicians were worried about a fuel pressure issue, but the launch happened shortly after. I always thought Diogenes to Alexander the Great was pretty baller. Alexander finds him sunbathing out in the marketplace and asks him if there's anything Alexander can do for him. Diogenes says, yes, you can stop blocking my sunlight. Alexander the Great found the philosopher looking attentively at a pile of human bones. Diogenes explained, I am searching for the bones of your father but cannot distinguish them from those of a slave. Alvin York fought in World War I, and he killed several enemies until one of the German officers surrendered to him. His superior said, well, York, I hear you have captured the whole fricking German army. York replied with, no sir, just 132 of them. When John Marshall was being besieged, the besieging force threatened to launch his son William at the castle from a trebuchet. His response was, I still have the hammer and anvil to forge yet more and better sons. The besieging commandeer decided against flinging a kid from a trebuchet, which was good because William ended up being a much better person than his dad, who was a bit of a dong. When the Romans were burning St. Lawrence to death, after a while he allegedly said, turn me over, I'm done on this side. During World War II, the Nazis wanted to march through Switzerland so that they wouldn't have to cross the Alps. They sent an ambassador to Bern to ask permission. Number was the reply from the Swiss ambassador. With all respect, said the Nazi ambassador, our army is twice the size of yours. How will you stop us from marching through without your permission? Well then, replied the Swiss, I guess we'll just have to give each soldier 2 bullets. The Nazis did not march through Switzerland. The Blitzkrieg is a lot less scary when your borders are made entirely out of choker points. General Anthony McAuliffe, nuts, an actual message to the German command when they surrounded Bastogne, Battle of the Bulge, 1944. Germans made an eloquent letter describing the quantity and the positions of their troops which vastly outnumbered the Americans, but McAuliffe just went with nuts. Of course, the story behind it is rather comical and complex, but it all boiled down to that one word, one of the prime examples of frick you in the history of warfare. Also, Laconica brevitas is always appreciated. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. JFK. Mongol General, what is best in life? Conan. To crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. That was originally attributed to Genghis Khan, I believe. Not a quote, percent, but Alonzo Cushing, 22 years old, was a fudging man at Pickett's charge in Gettysburg. Union artillery officer who had been injured 2 times had men holding him up while he continued to operate the cannon, holding it as well as he could against Pickett's rush of 12,000 men. He finally fell, taking a bullet in the mouth. Like, holy heck. To think of that situation at only 22. Just, wow. Also, for those interested, he was finally awarded the Medal of Honor in 2013. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.